Hello and welcome back. Before we get to part 2, Real Talk, please allow us to fulfill our capitalistic duty and plug our Patreon, the Contrarians Supplements.
That's right. For a small fee, you too can help the Contrarians rage on.
We have tiers ranging from just $1 to $10. It all depends on how much content you can handle.
Starting at $1, it's a Travoltis tier, which gets you access to new bonus episodes focusing on a new movie every month, as well as access to the patron chat. Join other patrons in making fun of our opinions.
Moving up to $3 is the Winonis tier, which unlocks access to our pre-recording notes, our video reviews, and our spin-off show, Contrarians After Hours.
That's a more laid-back space where we talk about other things we've been watching, reading, playing, thinking about. Sometimes it's related to the movies being covered in the main feed, but it usually isn't.
If you want to be part of those patrons who help us shape the show by telling us which movies to tackle, that's when you sign up for the $5 tier, the Embries, and the $10, the Gads.
Finally, all supplement subscribers, regardless of the tier, get access to our archive of special patron projects. Head over to patreon.com/contrarianprime now to join.
Be sure to listen through the end of the episode to find out what's coming up to the Contrarian Supplements this month. Now, it's time for some Real Talk.
Choto, Kinichiro, Dozo, Moto panukeiku, Moto panukeiku, Moto panukeiku. Hai, hai, hai.
Pancakes aren't quite as good as my mother's, but what I really go for here is the respect. Respect.
You didn't get enough of that from your mom.
You probably imagine that I have a lot of status up in robbery homicide. I mean, who can blame me for thinking that? The reality, however, no Cielo Drive for Bigfoot. No TV movie rights or book deals for Bigfoot. I mean, even the extra work is drying up. God help us all.
All right, Julio, I'll just ask, coming out of the gate, any revisiting of emotions or updating of thoughts, or does this just solidify your initial feelings on Inherent Vice?
The thoughts have definitely been updated. I think that there is I'm not gonna say that I enjoyed it more this time around. I think if anything it was harder this time around because I had the pressure of, like, I really need to get this movie in one way or another if I'm going to speak of it intelligently once we get to Real Talk. And I think that added pressure didn't do the movie any favors. But at the same time, it's offset by the fact that talking about the movie in Contrarian's Corner has kind of like calmed me down, because I was kind of irritated by the time I was done with the movie. So I think overall it's a net win for PTA and Inherent Vice when it comes to how I feel now versus how I felt the first time I watched it and the other times I watched it. But I think that I know that you like this movie more than I do, just based on the text you sent me earlier. Mm-hmm. So there's not going to be all out war, Alex, but I think that there's a lot of stuff that you enjoyed that I didn't. And even before I get to the course, I can tell you, if you really found Joaquin Phoenix funny in this movie, that's going to be our biggest disagreement.
Well, shoot, because I thought he was tremendous in this movie.
Is he? I mean, I said in Contrarian's Corner, but do you think of him as a comedy actor to begin with, like somebody that has the chops to like be funny?
But I think he can be funny, but I certainly don't think of him as like, Will Ferrell or something like that.
Okay, Will Ferrell is too much, but like Andrew Garfield in Under Silver Lake, because that came up, and he's pretty funny in that movie.
And like Brad Pitt can be funny from time to time. So yeah, I never see a Joaquin film and expect for it to be a crack up. But yeah, I did think he was funny in this. I thought a lot of this was funny. I thought a lot of this was good. So let's start off with the quotes. Did you pull your own quote, Julio?
I didn't even think to look at, I'll pull it up before I'm done with this, but Rotten quotes from Rotten Tomatoes website. I'm going to start with Ren Gender from Bitch Flicks.
Jesus.
I know. The last fresh one was from Movie Bitches. This is Bitch Flicks. Says, I can count on one hand the times I've fallen asleep in a theater. At Inherent Vice, I suspect my body was telling me this film was never going to get better. So why not do something more worthwhile with my time? You fallen asleep in the theater before, Alex?
Yeah, but only like in a situation like it was 3 a.m. and we were screening something that wasn't good. But I've never like gone to a movie on my own time and fallen asleep.
And if you had, it probably wouldn't have been the movie's fault. It would have just been that you were tired.
Yeah, I remember the Dark Knight Rises. I dozed off for maybe like 15 minutes towards the end at the midnight premiere. Because do you remember we watched that movie at 7 a.m. that same day? So it was the second time that's when I remember like, like kind of perking up. Oh, it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
That's why you think that ending is ambiguous, because you slept for 15 minutes. I fell asleep with this movie the second time I tried to watch it. So I screened it. And I was like, wow, that was not great. And then I said, okay, maybe I was just tired, because it's kind of like a similar thing, right? I've been working all day and then I sat through the movie as part of the job. And so I thought, okay, I'll give it another shot some other time. And I don't remember if it was still in theaters or when it was streaming, but it must have been when it was streaming. And I sat down to watch it, and it just, I don't know, I probably made it like 20, 30 minutes, and I fell asleep, and I woke up, and I tried to, I just went through the entire movie falling asleep time and again. So not ideal. And then I said, okay, I'm just going to give it some time, because this is obviously not hitting me the way it should this time. And then there was another time where I tried it again. I was like wide awake, and I streamed it beginning to end, and I was still underwhelmed. And so that's when it just became solidified in my mind that this was the PTA movie I do not like. And I would revisit it someday, but definitely not anytime soon. That's what I thought at that time, because it's just not happening. So the time finally came. But yeah, if I fall asleep at a movie, it's usually that I'm tired, not that the movie is not working. Next, M. Faust from The Public, Buffalo, says, there's nothing here that Robert Altman didn't do more effectively in his 1976 adaptation of The Long Goodbye, a film that rewards repeat viewings more than I suspect Inherent Vice will. You itching to rewatch Inherent Vice, Alex?
I mean, I definitely will at some point in my life. And it's a long movie, and I just watched it for the first time this week, so not running back to it. Long Goodbye is fucking great, as we've discussed, but kind of a bit of a stray there. It's like, hey, it's not as great as this like all-time classic. Go fuck yourself.
There is so much of the Long Goodbye DNA, though, in this movie, and because it's noir, and so of course there's just those elements that are there everywhere. Right? So it's The Big Sleep, it's Under the Silver Lake, it's Mute. So I think that it's fair to compare it to the best ones, because you're also going to compare it to the worst ones. And then it comes out, where it comes out. Next, Candace Frederick from Real Talk Online says, if I'm going to fawn over a puzzling film, I'd rather it be something like Inception or The Matrix. Movies that entertain me but also provoke so much thought and analysis that I can't take my mind off it. Unfair comparison to The Matrix, Alex?
Yeah, what the... Then you don't... That's so, like, flawed as an argument. Then you don't want to watch a movie like this. That's all. You want to watch, like, a science fiction movie.
It's like, listen, if you're going to make me think, then put in some action scenes in there.
Yeah, that's asinine.
Kung Fu fights. All right, we're going to close with Sonny Bunch from Washington Free Beacon, who says, Inherent Vice is a bizarre, almost dreamlike movie, one that makes sense from moment to moment, but falls apart the second you try to tie it all together. I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
And maybe even generous, because I don't know that it makes sense moment to moment. I think that some moments make more sense than others. And that is ultimately on me. I joked about it in Contrarians Corner, but there's a seed of truth there. And that is that if you are like an hour and a half into this movie and you're still trying to make sense of the plot, that's probably your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Or am I wrong? What do you think, Alex? Is this a movie that you can actually enjoy in a more traditional sense, as in like following the investigation?
I mean, I'm never going to tell anybody how they're supposed to interpret art, but I don't think so. I think to I think it was about a PTA movie. Yeah, it was about Licorice Pizza. You called it a vibe movie, and I definitely think this fits into that category. I could see not being with it, and if you do try to like really meticulously piece together the plot in a coherent fashion, you're probably just going to end up frustrated and exhausted by the end of the movie. But I just, I sometimes use that the way of describing of saying I just let it kind of just happen to me, let it just like wash over me, and for that I was thoroughly entertained. I also watched it in 2 parts. That's a big call out. I watched an hour 10 minutes and then an hour 20, whatever it was. So
How much time did it pass between the 2 parts?
it was like in the morning and then the evening, so it wasn't like days went by or anything like that.
Did you feel the need to, like, did you feel lost when you started the second? Because I did something similar in this, because we were originally going to record on Thursday. It's Sunday now. And so I started on Thursday and then, I stopped 30 minutes in because I was just so tired and it just wasn't going to happen. And then I started 30 minutes in, when I finally started watching it yesterday. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. So I had to start from the beginning again.
Oh, damn. So you had like 1.5 viewings of this?
1 1/3, maybe 1 1/4.
No, I wasn't. I didn't feel like I was lost. But again, I don't think I was as fervently trying to piece it together as you might have been.
Man, it's not a tax shelter. It's something, Bigfoot, man, much more vast.
This wouldn't be just more of your paranoid hippie bullshit, would it?
I don't know if you remember your experiences watching the other noirs, the similar movies that we've covered, but do you remember trying to solve the mystery or follow an investigation when we did The Long Goodbye or when we did Under the Silver Lake? Under the Silver Lake, I think, is probably a more apt comparison because that is a movie that when you're done, it kind of makes sense, but it also doesn't. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you could just read as, oh, this really happened, or this was all in his head. And so it's a lot more all over the place, the way that this movie, Inherent Vice, is. And so I was trying to, I'm like, what is the sweet spot? Why is it that, because I remember watching Under the Silver Lake and following the investigation, seeing how things connected, and never really getting lost the way that I would get lost in something like this. Like Inherent Vice, it was just such an avalanche of new names and new, plots, so to speak, like, schemes. People are scheming. And I was having such a hard time keeping track of it that I just, I couldn't enjoy it. Do you remember watching like The Long Goodbye or Under the Silver Lake and just being able to let the vibe take you, or were you trying to figure out what was happening?
Long Goodbye, way more so. I was trying to like piece together the story, whereas Under the Silver Lake was just so outlandish. It was kind of one of those things. I was like, yep, whatever. Like when he gets to that producer's mansion and ends up, bashing his head in and shit. I was just like, sure. So yeah, definitely similar here.
Yeah, this one is tough. It's tough for somebody like me. I don't think that I am alone. I mean, I was going through the quotes, and I think there are a lot of people that just have that as their primary complaint, their primary criticism. Is just that this movie, you get lost in the weeds with the investigation. And I mean, I'm of 2 minds about it. I think that it's a fair criticism because I think as human beings, we are wired to try to make sense of things. And if you tell me that this person disappeared, but really they might still be alive, and so if you set up a mystery, then my instinct, and I think most people's instincts, is to try to piece it together and try to, when you present me with potential clues, then I kind of like put them in the back of my mind and I start trying to see how it all works. Oh, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. And so this movie doesn't, it just keeps throwing random clues at you, but doesn't give you time to like put them together. And it doesn't really help you like put them together. I think that there's a disregard for, like, some movies will help you, every now and then will help you catch up. And this movie doesn't do that. In fact, it kind of works against you because I think the voiceover is more confusing than anything. How do you feel at voiceover? We're in real talk now.
Oh yeah, I really didn't like it.
Okay.
It was like my main detractor of the movie.
Because of the tone?
Yeah, it's just silly, and I understand there's a lot of things that are set up through the voiceover, but it's I I really could have done without it, and I'm sure they could have figured out a way to make the movie without it.
Yeah, I wish that the voiceover had been the one element of the movie that was not so goofy, so that would have helped us. I think that that's it for audience members like me. Maybe you can always fall back on the voiceover when you feel like you're just like falling behind. The voiceover comes and picks you up and runs with you to catch up with Joaquin Phoenix and the rest of the movie. In that way, because in that way you just your brain kind of like takes a break, and you can just maybe I would find everything funnier if my brain wasn't working so hard to untangle all the facts that are being thrown my way when this movie's happening. But that's not what happens. So I just don't find most of it. I just don't find funny. I mean, let's just finish that Joaquin conversation. Neither of us think of him as a comedic actor, but you find him funny here. Do you really find the scream funny with Jenna Malone?
Ah! Mm-hmm.
Yes, big time.
God, why?
Why don't you find it funny?
I think it's funny in isolation. In the context of the movie, it just feels, like I said, it's pretty staged. But I think that there is more to it. I think I really don't like the way he looks. I just can't take him seriously. And I know that's the point, that I shouldn't be taking him seriously. But I mean, even as a character in a movie, he just feels so fake, the way that he looks and the way that he talks. And I just don't feel like that's a real character in a movie. It just feels like Joaquin Phoenix having fun. Yeah. And I have a problem with that, apparently. Don't you think that he stands out in a way that probably most other people in the movie don't? Like, everybody else is also being silly, but they at least feel like they're taking things seriously.
I don't know, man. I think it's kind of the tone. And like this whole thing could just be his imagination, and these are all these like different archetypes of people and characters that he thinks of, and he's like the wacky one. But as far as like being silly, I mean, Josh Brolin is obviously like playing for laughs here, and it works because he's very funny. And Owen Wilson too, like his just really dry delivery and very un-Owen Wilson like dialogue. I mean, I found it funny. I found multiple people in this funny, and Benicio del Toro obviously being just wacky for the sake of wackiness.
Is there somebody in the cast that you don't like?
I will say the Martin Short thing is almost distracting, like in how just kind of outlandish it is, but it's funny because it's Martin Short and that's his MO. Yeah, my big complaint as far as just a cast and execution thing is the Joanna Newsom, the narrator. But I think, I don't know, this is just kind of one of those movies I think in any universe I would enjoy more than you, because it's just kind of like there's so many NPCs, and it's just, those games that are called walking simulators. To me, that's kind of like what a movie like this is. It's not something that I find myself like ultra invested in, but I just find the places we go and the people we see to be really interesting and engaging. And there's some really funny dialogue too.
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think. There are a couple things that made me laugh, and there's some things that just made me laugh when we referenced them in Contrarians Corner. Obviously, Josh Brolin screaming in Japanese, that was just funny. But then there's, I guess there are some times when Joaquin Phoenix manages to be witty, and I somewhat bought it. In that same scene in the Japanese restaurant when he tells Brolin something like, "Oh, you would know this if you hadn't skipped class to go plant evidence on poor hippies," or something. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a good joke. And I guess that's something that I enjoy in the movie. And it's not so much the comedy of it, but just the constant clash between a very square cop, as played by Josh Brolin, and the ultimate representation of hippie culture in Joaquin Phoenix, and how they are not even uneasy allies. I think that they're mostly whenever they have to work together is because they run out of options. But for the most part, they don't like each other, and Brolin is always harassing him. And I think I wish the movie was more about that.
Did you find any of it funny, of like when the cops and Brolin would just beat up Joaquin?
It just felt so random. That scene where he is at the rich woman's house and he's like looking at the ties.
Eric Roberts' wife.
Eric Roberts' wife, yes. And the last thing we see is he's looking through the ties, and then he kind of like looks up and he goes, "Bigfoot." And then we cut to him leaving the house, and then Brolin grabs him and starts beating him in slow motion. And I'm like, I get that this is supposed to be funny, but it makes so little. Why is he getting beaten up there? Because he was not supposed to be in the house and somebody calls the cops
Well, like the other cops too that bully him and beat him up. It's just like the hippie thing. He's a hippie, so fuck him.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I like it more on an intellectual level, just to use the movie as a way of seeing how the authority, like the mainstream authority, you know, the system, the man, how it's just having trouble keeping up with this wave of different thinking in the 60s, you know. And if you're going to use the relationship between Joaquin Phoenix and Josh Brolin as a way to represent that, I'm like, okay, that's interesting, you know, because like I said, they don't like each other. Joaquin Phoenix is always making fun of Brolin. Brolin is always abusing Joaquin Phoenix, but there comes a point where they need each other. And so they're each other's like best way to move forward. So there's something to be said about that.
You want more of the tale of the autocracy and the little guy.
Well, yeah, because, you know, in the end, they have to coexist. They have to learn to coexist, or they're just not going to be able to progress. And so what we see at the very end as insane, like, I don't find it funny. Like, Brolin eating the weed. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I was curious what you took away from that scene and the synchronized talking and shit.
I mean, I don't find it funny or amusing, but at least I appreciate the point it's making. The fact that we go through this journey with Brolin and with Phoenix, and then at the end, this is the closest they can come to maybe. It's like an olive branch. He apologizes for what he did, for trying to frame him, and, you know, swallows his pride as he's swallowing the weed. Then walks out. It's like, all right, maybe there's a future for these two. I like it as an idea. When I was watching it happen, I was like, oh, this is pretty cringe. This is not no moto panukeiku as far as what's going to make me laugh. But you know, PTA is a smart filmmaker, and I'm assuming Thomas Pynchon is a smart writer, because he has several books. So obviously, this is not just just for fun movie. There should be something in the background, at least, that he was trying to transmit. And I think that maybe that's it. You know, a very silly examination of the clash between counterculture and mainstream culture. It doesn't make any sense though, so that's why I'm just having trouble connecting with it. What did you make out of it? I mean, for you, like 2.5 hours later, you're like, oh, that was a fun ride.
Pretty much, yeah. It was, I don't know. I don't know at what point I was supposed to be taking it too seriously. And then just for context, Julio and I both love Under the Silver Lake. So
Yes.
it's interesting.
And The Long Goodbye.
Different. Oh, yeah. Difference of opinion here that's made interesting by that fact. But yeah, I don't know. I think I just kind of felt kind of early what it was going to be, and just kind of goofy. And I already used the phrase fever dream, but kind of like that. And, you know, an Alice in Wonderland type, follow the rabbit down the hole, and because you go this way, you got a zig here, and you run into this character. Like I said, it's a walking simulator of a movie, it felt like to me. But that being said, if the little comedy quirks and the weirdness of it doesn't work for you, and then you find yourself like, what is this even about? Like, I could see the idea of something like this being like, there's too many loose threads that if you're not really swept up by it, you start pulling at them and the whole thing falls apart for you.
And that's the thing, Alex, because I knew what I was getting into. So you would have thought that would have allowed me to just sit back and enjoy and not even try.
No, sir.
No.
It's these various cases I'm working on. And Glenn Jarlock and Vincent Indelicato.
There's another big comparison that I kept thinking of, and looking at some quotes on Rotten Tomatoes, I wasn't alone. And that is, of course, The Big Lebowski, which would be another sort of noir investigation featuring a detective that is very in over his head. And that is another instance of something where I found it so much more charming than what's going on here. Maybe the plot is not as convoluted in The Big Lebowski, but it's also pretty out there. I mean, I've seen it very recently, so, you know, I have the benefit of just it being really fresh in my mind. But that is another instance of every couple scenes, the Big Lebowski will throw you another curveball as far as like, and then this is happening too, and then there's this character. I don't remember if I mentioned it to you after I watched it just, I think it was like a month ago or so, but Ben Gazzara is in that movie. He shows up really late. He's the porn producer. And it's like, hey, he's there for that one scene, and then he leaves. And so it's just part of the genre, the idea of just having these very colorful characters show up and as touchstones of the movie, and then you just keep going and going and going.
I completely forgot that he shows up at the end of that movie.
Yeah. He shows up, he drugs him, and then he releases him into the wild. Jeff Bridges. So I can enjoy this type of movie, Alex. I think it's just, in this case, the formula, the elements just
I'm trying to
together.
Pinpoint what it is that throws it off for you. Yeah, I think it's just a great time. Is this like your bottom tiered PTA?
I think it's at the very bottom.
Oh, man.
Because there's everything else that he's made I just like so much. Even the ones that I don't think are masterpieces, like Hard Eight. I mean, that's a solid movie, but it's not on the level of other things that he would go on to make.
I think I'm putting this over One Battle After Another.
Jesus Christ. Now you're trying to hurt me.
I really like this. But again, it's I think it speaks to his skill as a filmmaker in that I'm just sitting here being like, oh, I don't know, I just liked it. Whereas, with The Master and There Will Be Blood, I can talk to you for hours on end about like how well executed the story is, what this means, what I think this means. Whereas this is just like, yeah, it's a good time, man. Grab a bowl of ramen and watch Joaquin, yell and shit. I think I do get tired of using the analogy or the comparison to Alice in Wonderland, but like that's really what this feels like. And it does feel, I haven't seen Hard Eight, but this has such a different feel than pretty much, what would you say, the closest in kind of tone in terms of, I would say Punch Drunk Love almost. With
maybe, but it's
a little bit of whimsy and shit.
Yeah, his early movies, and I think there was a Rotten Tomatoes quote that kind of brought it up. They're like, oh, he's back to being silly after being serious for, several years. This is definitely not on the...
Yeah, Magnolia is a real silly movie.
But Boogie Nights has a lot of the
Boogie
whimsy.
Nights is like, yes, but it is directly comedic. Like it's intentionally like, there's like people like, so there's like slapstick stuff in that movie.
Okay,
whereas
you telling me this is not directly comedic in their advice?
Well, okay, what I would say is the difference is like in writing something like Boogie Nights, there's parts where you expect the audience to laugh like in unison, whereas this, it feels like writing the certain lines and moments to be just that character, and if someone finds it funny, then good for them. Like I said, I think the hardest I laughed was the part where Owen Wilson talks about the high turnover rate of personnel in his band. Just the way he phrases that, like that shit, I laughed so hard at that. So there's nothing in this that I think is, as funny as I'm a fucking idiot. I'm a fucking idiot in Boogie Nights, but there's definitely some like moments that made me laugh.
I think that when you craft a scene like the one where he looks at the picture of the baby and screams, that's nothing but an attempt at being funny. So that's why I would say this movie,
that's fair.
It tries to be funny, and I guess tellingly, the times when it works for me the best is when there is a hint of genuine feelings, which is, that scene with Owen Wilson, actually.
I mean, now I'm thinking about it, I did call out the Martin Short thing is kind of distracting, and that it's just Martin Short doing the Martin Short act, which is always funny, which makes me wonder if they had gotten a different, he had to have written that with him in mind. Like, I can't imagine they got fucking Jeffrey Dean Morgan for that instead. Is he still going to be like erratically moving around and shit?
The script just says Martin Short enters, and then there's a blank page.
Yes, it's like the old Robin Williams approach of that there's actually like 7 hours of footage from that 10-minute sequence of the movie.
It's real cocaine, so it's just Joaquin and Martin Short riffing.
So I guess to finalize my thoughts before I shoot back to you on the comedy thing, I think I would say I think the intended audience reaction when writing something like this is a little bit different than when you make a movie like Boogie Nights, or even the Licorice Pizza, where they just told Bradley Cooper, "Make America laugh." Like, that's all they wanted from him in that. So yeah, I was kind of like vetting my thoughts in real time there. I think just the anticipated reaction differs in something like that, because you can't guarantee a movie like this that the audience, that people are going to find it funny. I bet there's people that love this movie that at no point it like burst out laughing. It's just,
Oh God, I don't know. But how do you even enjoy the movie then if you're not finding it funny? Because you're definitely not finding it anything else. It's like, if it's not funny, then what is it? That's my problem, that I just don't find it funny. But I'll tell you, I find it at its most compelling when it's not trying to be funny. In those little moments, like speaking of Owen Wilson, it's not the scene where they first meet. It's the scene where he meets him at the house where he's hanging out with the band, and they're sitting at the table, and he basically tells him that he saw his wife, that Jenna Malone and the baby are okay, and that's when Owen Wilson says, "Okay, I wish I could get out, but I can't."
All I knew was we couldn't do each other any good staying together. The baby looked like shit, getting worse every day. We're just getting fucked up and sitting there and saying, "Well, we gotta do something. You're dragging me down." And
that conversation where it's clear that there is a character that has a very real longing in there's something at stake. There's this man that is separated from his family and wants to rejoin them, but doesn't feel he can. And then Joaquin says, "Well, I'll make it happen, or I'll see what I can do." I was like, okay, that is cool. That is something that I can hold on to, especially because Owen Wilson is talking about how he joined this movement. He went undercover to work for the government because he thought that would be him doing something for his country, and then it's morphed into something that he really doesn't want to be associated with. I thought that was cool. That was, there was something there that, of course, doesn't really get explored, but I like that. And then, of course, the big scene with Catherine Waterston, where she's, just talking about being in love with a man that was not good for her and being used by that man, and facing Joaquin to kind of confront who she really is versus the idealized version that he has of her in her head that he's been putting out for the entire movie. He's like, "Oh, but Shasta this or Shasta that." And then Shasta shows up and tells him, "I left you for this guy that treated me like shit.
yeah.
How do you feel about it?" That is really good stuff. And it's lost, or not lost, because actually PTA gives it like a pretty good, he puts it on a pedestal right there. But still, it's just surrounded by so much silly stuff that I wish that there was more of it and less of that.
What is Shasta, the actor's name?
Catherine Waterston.
Yeah, she's really good.
Did you want more of her? Do you think the movie would be better if Shasta was more in it?
Yes. Or if Shasta from the Shasta character was a narrator. Just give me, I just don't like the imaginary friend thing.
Dude, that's right. She could have been the narrator.
Yeah. I would have pieced it together. And also, I think it could have made it interesting, from her perspective. Because Doc is not a hero by any stretch, but just talking about what an idiot he is or something. But yeah, no, I kind of was bummed when she was gone, and then definitely came back with a vengeance with her and Joaquin going to town. But as with all things in life, I just wanted more Benicio del Toro. I know you don't like the dialogue or some of his lines he delivers, but I mean, he's great.
He's good at delivering them. There's some people that would have stumbled with as much exposition as he has in that scene where they're talking about the boat. He's fine. I think that when the movie first introduces him, you see him, he comes in and he bails Joaquin out of that original arrest or whatever, and then you think, oh, he's going to be a constant in the movie, but no, not really. He comes in in the middle, and then he comes in at the end.
Yeah, I think one of the things I really like about this movie is, for as wacky and kind of, I guess, all over the place as it is, I love when a movie plorps us into a pre-existing universe. And I think the best, most representative scene of that is our introduction to Benicio del Toro, where he just comes in and starts talking shit to Josh Brolin. You're like, wait, who is this guy? And then you realize it's his, his attorney or whatever. For a movie that has less than zero interest in hand-holding, I just think elements like that are getting more and more lost from movies where you just meet a character in the middle of what they're doing, as opposed to okay, now this is this character, and this is what their relationship with the other characters is.
Yes, this movie's on the extreme, though, Alex. You can't tell me that this movie couldn't have used a little bit of handholding.
Maybe a little.
Not with the Benicio character, but I think that's a great idea. Having the Shasta character be the narrator would have been perfect because it would allow her to give us some insight. She's while building up her character, because then that whatever she's saying as an ex-girlfriend of Joaquin, and but she also has connections with many of the characters. So it kind of makes sense that she would have something to say about them. This girl, the potentially imaginary friend, we don't know anything about her other than, she's kind of a weirdo. And yeah, that's having an outside narrator in this case didn't really help. So that's a really good idea. And that would have been, a tiny bit of hand-holding that I would have appreciated and maybe would have made the movie better. Or you go the completely opposite way and you just have Joaquin being the narrator. And, it's just really fucking weird, but at least it's his voice. I don't know. I have zero guesses as far as who the porn star is. I don't know if it's a big character like Sordelich, the narrator, or if it's just a small character like Japonica, maybe.
Man, I'm bummed we gave our joke away at the beginning. I was going to really try to convince you that Owen Wilson had done something and had it scrubbed from the internet and whatnot.
Sex! It's still sex!
So our subject du jour for B2B is the character of Clancy Sharlock, the sister of, I think, Glenn Sharlock, who Doc is almost framed for the murder of, but he investigates. And she is played by Michelle Sinclair. And in a former life, Michelle Sinclair was known as Belladonna, a very popular adult actress of the early 2000s, I think what you would call the DVD age. I do remember in college her being kind of, streets no ball player. That's one of the gals that people would discuss when, back in that time period for me. So that would have been mid 2000s. AVN Hall of Famer, as with most that we've dealt with here. A pretty interesting case in that she retired in 2012 from the adult film industry, saying that she was, quote, no longer interested in having sex on camera and would be pursuing other interests. And she's done a couple other things, but I remember watching the trailer for this because she's in the trailer and going, no. I was like, that can't be. And I found a couple of funny Reddit posts that were dated from when the trailer came out of people being like, is fucking Belladonna in the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie? So it garnered a bit of attention. And one of the things I found was an interview with her around the time of the release of this with Vice, because she had been working with them on another project. So go quickly through this here. I'm just going to read some of it because I didn't like a couple of the places the interview went. But Michelle Sinclair, a.k.a. Belladonna, with Chris Neratko. In 2012, I was working on an installment of my short-lived Vice documentary series called Skinema, featuring Michelle Sinclair. Today, Sinclair is one of the actresses in Paul Thomas Anderson's Inherent Vice, but back then she was known as Belladonna. At the time, she was at something of a crossroads in her life. As Belladonna, she was arguably one of the most successful and sexual beings to ever do it on camera. But at the time we were filming, she was in the last days of her XXX career, as well as the twilight of her marriage to longtime collaborator and father of her child, Aidan Riley. We talked extensively on and off camera about what direction her life would take at a time the world seemed to be spread out in front of her. Over the past year and a half, we've stayed in touch and exchanged parenting tips and baby stories. During that time, she's mentioned a few possible new career paths. Aerial silk performer, Cirque du Soleil acrobat, sexual instructor, the list goes on. Then one day, out of the blue, she texted me, I have amazing news. You're not going to believe it. She went on to tell me that she had landed a meaty role in PTA's stoner gumshoe flick Inherent Vice. Now, Julio, prepare to roll your eyes real hard at this, which I like to describe as a reimagining Big Lebowski prequel. Starring Joaquin Phoenix. Her legions of adoring fans have no doubt been wondering what she's been doing since leaving the biz, and I'm sure they were shocked to see her pop up fully clothed in a trailer for Inherent Vice. So I decided to call up the star of Dick Sauce and My Ass is Haunted to discuss this new chapter in her life.
Are those two separate movies, or is that one title?
Yeah, those are the two different installments of Star Wars. All right, so this now becomes an interview. At the end of the final pat of your Skinema episode, you walked off into the sunset, unsure what was next. 2 years later, how are you? And how the hell did you end up in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie? This is her. Well, I'm healthy, my daughter as well, and I have an amazing, incredible partner. You know, I talked about me wanting more romance when we did our last interview, and I never thought it would be like this. I definitely feel like I found a life partner. As for an Inherent Vice, I'm friends with Joaquin Phoenix. I've read this interview like 3 times getting ready for this, and there's nothing more. She doesn't extrapolate on that. How are they friends? Just imagine Joaquin with like a ball cap on, you know, at like fucking an adult expo, just being like, I'm a big fan. And I randomly got a text from him saying, I'm working on this project. Is it okay if I give the casting director your information? Because they're interested in casting you for a part. I was like, sure, great. When they called, I found out it was a Paul Thomas Anderson movie and started freaking out. Then I asked what kind of scene it was, and of course, it was a sex scene. At that point, I was not interested in being naked on camera or doing the things that I am known for, so I told her I wasn't interested in the part, but maybe they could find something different. She relayed the message, and Paul was like, what are you talking about? This is a major motion picture. Are you crazy? He couldn't understand how I could say no. I wanted to be a part of the film. It's Paul Thomas Anderson, and he's an amazing filmmaker. So I thought about it and figured if it wasn't a porn scene and instead maybe a softcore, tasteful-looking thing, then maybe I could do it. So I said yes. How similar was the real Hollywood casting couch to the one used in the porn world? For context, this interview, the interviewer here, the writer, keeps going back to the porn thing, which becomes kind of gross towards the end. But I mean, I understand that with the subject you have, you kind of have to bring it up a little bit. Well, that depends on the porn company, I think. But no, it was very professional. I went in and met with a woman named Cassandra, and she videotaped me reading for the part of Clancy Sherlock. And then the interviewer asked if she was naked when she did that. And she said, no, it was just the dialogue part. And there was a ton of dialogue, actually. Then there's a bit where Joaquin walks in the door and sees me and Tariq fucking in his office. So I don't know if that was shot or like that was supposed to, because that obviously does not happen in the movie.
It does not. And now I'm trying to piece together. I'm doing what I was trying to do during the movie, trying to piece together how that makes sense in the context of the plot. So Tariq is Michael K. Williams.
Yeah.
And he had been in prison with this woman's brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, with the movie we're dealing with, it could have made it happen and just be like, yeah, sure, whatever.
That's right. Yeah. Because we never see him again. So I guess there's a draft of the script where Joaquin, it doesn't start with him like getting high on oxygen, but it starts with him walking in and they're having sex in his office, which is really dumb. But I guess it goes, with everything else that's happening in the movie.
It was a very quick kind of thing. There wasn't meant to be a lot of focus on us having sex, which was another reason why I thought I could do it. I ended up reading, and Paul loved it, so he had me do a reading with Joaquin. I originally filmed a great scene with Joaquin and another guy, Mars Crane. They were really happy because I was super prepared and nailed it, but they ended up recasting the guy, Mars Crane, so we had to do a reshoot. The second time around, there wasn't as much dialogue, and in the end, the sex scene didn't make the cut, so there you go, which I was happy about. And listen, I get it. There's a lot of me having sex out there. You can't take away everything I've done, but it made me feel like people who are watching this and don't know Belladonna will just see some woman, which is exactly what happened with you. Whereas in other situations, other movies we've done, it's been like, well, 52 pickup. Who couldn't it be? They don't know who I am, and it gives me a chance to do something different. It gives me a chance to be Michelle Sinclair. So the interviewer there, it goes on to ask if she wants to do mainstream acting, and she basically acts like this was just kind of a one-off opportunity. It's not necessarily like her main passion or calling. And then the interviewer asked, I think, 2 or 3 times if she was going to get back into porn. And she says no. For a little bit of compare and contrast, Julio, I'm sending you in our chat right now. She's certainly made a concentrated effort to change her appearance. So that is her back in her adult film days. And then the second picture is her at the premiere of Inherent Vice. And you can see it's both clearly the same girl, but I think she's made a pretty conscious effort to change her appearance.
Girl Next Door versus mom of Girl Next Door.
He was on a guilt trip, man. Doing tons of acid and peyote, and just got to a point. He felt bad about making people pay for all those cheap, ugly houses of his. You gonna keep holding on to that tank, or are you gonna marry it?
But she's an interesting one. That interview, there's a couple others I've read with her that she seems to. I mean, the post-porn career is always a strange one because historically, it's an industry that it breeds people that will become like, born again Christians and then condemn the adult film industry. And then there's also a lot of, that party scene in 52 Pickup is not too far off base of like the drug culture and whatnot, just based on my understanding. But then you have like Belladonna or Michelle Sinclair and Sasha Grey, who are people that are just like, yeah, it's something I did. I can't really like undo it, but then seem to be fairly well adjusted, all things considered. You know what I mean? And I think something like this is exactly right. Like she said, in this movie, if you just have a part like that, there's no reason or telling that you would think, oh, that woman used to do porn. Like if you have no idea who she is, she just fits in like normal. So
you knew where she was. Well, I guess you knew who she was when you were watching this movie, so you spotted her right away.
I had no idea she had a full scene. Like I had just always like been on the assumption she was just like a player or had like one line or something like that. I didn't realize she had this full like scene with Joaquin where, she's not Meryl Streep or anything, but she holds her own in that scene with Joaquin, and it's a pretty enjoyable one just for how ridiculous it is.
I think in the context of, the meta context of it, of her originally turning it down because it was a sex scene and then agreeing and then the sex scene getting cut, I think it's pretty awesome that the scene ends with Joaquin trying to hook up with her and then she slaps him.
Yeah. She popped him good too, man. That wasn't a working slap. She had her working boots on. So I'm very glad we got to do this movie because of this, because I don't know really how we could have shoehorned it in any other way. But yeah, I don't think she obviously is commanding of the screen or anything like Sasha Grey, but she's really not supposed to be. She's just supposed to be another one of these random chess pieces that Joaquin encounters in his mystical journey to figure out what happened. And I don't know if she'll pop back up again in anything else that we do down the line, but I thought so far, arguably the most dignified entry of the bunch.
I just like that she initially turned it down. She was like, oh, it's PTA. Oh, wait, it's just a sex scene? Fuck this.
Which, that's something I can kind of get to, the idea of, nope, I've already done that plenty. I don't need to do that again.
Obviously, I would like to hear like the rationale on the other side, because on the face of just her story, it sounds kind of tone deaf that they had. So there's two sex scenes in the movie. There's the one with Shasta that is pretty intense, and obviously it's not just a one-off. It's a character that's, at the beginning of the movie and at the end and all that stuff. And then, well, I guess you have the was it like the pussy buffet or whatever? But that is kind of like off camera. It just feels weird that they had this one sex scene at some point in the movie and they were like, hey, how about we get a porn star to be in it? It just, and I know Joaquin might have been like, well, I know somebody, but it still feels a little weird. I guess I want the PTA side of it telling me, no, it wasn't as insensitive as that. It was more that we're kind of trying to come up with like an off the wall casting.
Yeah. And like I said, the part was big. She gets a credit like at the end, and not just like a scrolling credit. Like she gets the Michelle Sinclair as Clancy Sharlock, like listed. I think it might be next to Maya Rudolph's name or something.
Yeah. They went on to become fast friends.
As someone who's been down this particular exit ramp, you can only cruise the boulevards of regret so far. Then you gotta get back up onto the freeway again.
So that is our connection to the adult film industry. And like I said, you can find posts and reactions from when the trailer came out from her fans at the time, because she had kept such a low profile and continues to do so. Like, no social media. She's just a face in a crowd at this point. And so good on her. I hope she's well wherever she is.
Is this a reason why your dad got you Inherent Vice?
My dad doesn't know any of this. No. My dad knows I love Joaquin Phoenix and Paul Thomas Anderson. That's why. Yeah, and like I said, Belladonna was prominent when I was in college, and someone whose work made the rounds, but she was never one of my go-tos or top dogs. So all due respect, I got way more enjoyment out of this than I did any of her other work. I'll say that.
It's a condemnation of the other work for people like me who didn't enjoy Inherent Vice.
To reiterate, Contrarians don't kink shame. It's just the majority of the stuff. The majority of the stuff she did, I was just like, I have no truck for this.
I wish she was slapping Joaquin Phoenix instead.
Yes, exactly. Huffing laughing gas and slapping Joaquin in the face. Before we wrap up with our thoughts, 2 Academy Award nominations Inherent Vice received. One for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Fuck off.
Fuck you. Which would lose out that year to The Imitation Game. And then also nominated for Best Costume Design, which you can't argue with that.
Yeah. This movie looks great, but of
the
course,
movie looks incrable.
Yeah, that's
it's
no
PTA.
surprise. Yeah.
That lost out to the Grand Budapest Hotel.
I mean, that movie makes more sense, so I'm okay with that.
Owen Wilson. I win either way, man. That was a terrible Owen Wilson, but all right, Julio, man, I'm looking over the PTA lineup, the filmography here, and again, I haven't seen Hard 8, but this is, man, I really liked this. It ain't The Master, and it ain't There Will Be Blood, that's for sure, but it probably end up on the higher end of the list. So, apologies, I think it would beat Magnolia.
God, why would you do that?
Because this, I'd feel happy when it's over. Magnolia, I'm just like, I want to die.
As promised, I looked up my review for Inherent Vice. So apparently, last time I watched it was as we were getting started with the Trump presidency, August 7, 2016. No. Wait, it hadn't happened yet.
No, we were heading into the election.
Right,
Yeah.
there was still hope.
Well, it was Hillary Clinton, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I mean, but we were no, Alex, I don't know about you, but August 7, 2016, I was like, there is no way.
Yeah.
I get it that it's funny. I get it that America's doing a bit, but come on. And
there's no way he can be president.
No, yeah.
Yeah, August 2016, we all thought, there's no way a UFC event can ever happen on the White House lawn.
Those were the jokes that we were making. We're like, can you imagine?
Yes, exactly.
Rewatched August 7, 2016, and my review, 2 stars. I say, well, now I know for sure that it's not for me. This time I tried to shrug off the plot and simply let the movie take me for a ride, but I just don't find it funny. It feels quirky for the sake of quirkiness, and I am such a square, man. And then today I tried to keep on the plot and it didn't work either. I think I'm going to stay with 2 stars. As much as I like some of the stuff, like some of the very concentrated things, but when it comes to how the movie makes me feel at the end, it was just frustration, exasperation. I just don't find it funny. Few things are worse than sitting through a really long movie that you don't find funny. It compounds, the annoyance. So, yeah, 2 stars.
Which, yeah, I'm guilty of that also, man. I can't begin to think of how many times we've sat here and I've said, like, yeah, and the fact that I didn't like it and just kept going made me dislike it even more and more. So, while I disagree with you about this movie in particular, that is a sentiment I can completely understand.
Yeah, it stays at the bottom of my PTA rankings.
Boo.
I wouldn't be opposed to having it playing in the background. I think it's a movie that probably, for me, would work best like that. I'm doing something else. Every now and then I look up and there's just some random nonsense going on and it looks great.
Yeah.
But as far as like an experience of sitting down and just watching it beginning to end, it just doesn't do it for me. So 2 stars for me. And is it like an A? I don't think, did you give it a little grade?
It's an A. It's, I give out 5 stars probably more liberally than a lot of our contemporaries would, but it's sadly not a 5-star movie. This would be like a 4.5, so like a solid A, because the narration thing really would kill the momentum of the movie for me, because it wasn't even the thing that I get mad about of like hand holding. Like it wasn't like it worked as a device to just explain things further. It would often just be like, I can watch this happen. Just like, shut up. Like, I don't need you to tell me what this person's thinking. I have my own eyes and I can interpret. But
I don't need the bells and whistles of the astrology.
Exactly.
And
and I think I went, ugh, when she's explaining what's happening and then turns and goes, "You're doing good, Doc," and like tussles his hair.
and then disappears.
At that point, it's like, oh no, Julio might be right. But I stuck it through and we're good. But yeah, big fan of this movie. I think it was meant to happen this way, that I never saw it until we did it for this reason.
Yes.
And so, because who knows, if I'd seen it in 2014, I was a different man at that point in my life. That I might have been annoyed with it or found it repetitive or whatnot. But good stuff. Good conversation.
You're doing good, Doc.
Julio, we are nearing the end of our summer journey. And what a better way, to end our discussion of the attempts of people in the pornographic film industry moving into mainstream filmmaking than to discuss who else but Orson Welles.
We're going back to the beginning.
We're going back to the beginning. If you've been kind of keeping along, you'll see that these movies, we've done them in chronological order of when they were released, and we're closing in 2018 with The Other Side of the Wind, the Orson Welles thought to have been lost film that was in development for nearly 50 years. It was recovered, and I believe it was Netflix, right, where it got distributed?
Yes. Yeah. I am looking forward to the story of how Netflix, once they had the rights and nobody could stop them, they decided to insert a modern day porn star into Orson Welles' movie just to, for marketability so that you could really sell it.
You got fucking Peter Bogdanovich, and then they just CGI a Bella Danger in the background there.
Yes. Actually, Sasha Grey is in the background.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and the most spoiler I will provide. The player involved that we will be discussing is not on camera at any point.
Oh.
So it's trust me, this one's a fascinating story that we're going to get into, and I think we have lined up a little bit of a bonus to go along with it. So stay tuned for that. Other Side of the Wind coming up. Julio, what else do we have going on, and where?
Well, if you go to our Patreon channel, that's patreon.com/Contrarian Prime, there's a lot of cool stuff. Most recently, as of this recording, we dropped our Infernal Affairs conversation. That's a bonus episode. You might as well call it that Departed conversation.
Mm-hmm.
For more reasons than one. I mean, we definitely talk about Infernal Affairs, but it's so tied together to The Departed that, we just keep going back and forth. And we already got some feedback about it. And some people were surprised by our love for The Departed, which, I don't know. So when I do the next newsletter, I think I'm going to link to my Scorsese rankings just to add even more fire to the controversy.
Yeah.
We also have, if you are a patron now, you have seen that we're also putting our post-credits videos on the feed there, just for fun, because why should YouTube have all the content? We should also make it available to everybody that's signed up for our Patreon. So the Dennis the Menace post credits, I'm staring at it right now. It's a video right there on our Patreon. There's also an After Hours where we recap what I've watched in 2026 so far. There are 2026 releases. I talk about 8 movies that are at the time my 8 2026 watches, and then you also tell us about a horror convention you went to where you got your Friday 13th 8 poster signed.
Yep. Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yes, and you also talk about Brockmire, that show.
Yes.
Starring Hank Azaria, and then patron friend, past guest Ryan, he commented that Steve Coogan has a show that in spirit sounds like the British version of Brockmire. If you can imagine that, it sounds interesting. And of course, lots of more stuff. Just go to the website, go to the patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. You'll see what else we posted since we recorded this. And then you can just join and enjoy. But that's it, Alex. Let's get out of here.
Take care, y'all. Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
Just for old time's sake, I really don't care.